Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. My name is Dr. Danielle Lord. I am the host, or I guess I'm the hostess of the Compassion Project, where we're working to spark a compassion evolution. And yes, I said evolution, not revolution. A revolution is a spark in the pan, a flash, and evolution is a long-term sustainable goal. And we need to bring more compassion to the world. So today I'm joined by my friend and guest, Tracy Cram Perkins, author of the Dementia Home Care and a fellow USA Global show host. Hi, Tracy, and welcome.
Hi, Danielle, and thank you so much for having me on your show.
You're more than welcome. And I think that this is the perfect topic for today, and certainly the Compassion Project, because compassion, we need it everywhere. And certainly within those that are suffering from dementia, both the patient as well as the caregiver. So Tracy, I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself, and you're kind of in a different spot today. So I tend to think that reading bios is kind of impersonal. And so I'd like to hear from you, from your heart and your experience, what brought you into the work of dementia care and caring for others.
Well, thank you very much for asking. This is kind of exciting to be on this side of the screen here today. I am a 4-time dementia caregiving survivor, and I wrote Dementia Home Care in answer to a question my father asked me, which was, what does it take to be treated like a human being? Which also has led me on an incredible journey that I have not expected, where I ended up getting to be places like this on a show talking about things that people don't normally talk about because of the stigmas around dementia.
Being. That is incredibly powerful. That was like a heart-stopping chill moment of wow. And I think that it's such a powerful, not only a powerful statement, but it's such a need in our communities right now. And, you know, I think you and I were part of a conversation just Wednesday where we were having this whole topic of conversation around the fact that our seniors right now are feeling really helpless. They're going into communities and they sometimes feel housed. And I heard the word prisoner used, and wow, two things that should never be together in our elder community and feeling like prisoners. So I think one thing I learned from being in healthcare on the administrative side was that there's really no compassion. Just because you enter the healthcare system, compassion doesn't necessarily follow. When we think about the two being very closely connected, right? Healthcare and compassion. But from yourself as being a 4-time caregiving survivor, as you call yourself, what does it take? Take us through that journey of what it means to be a caregiver, and where's the trauma in all of that? Not only for the patient who is experiencing dementia or a brain injury, but for yourself as the caregiver as well.
Well, usually when someone gets a dementia diagnosis, it's unexpected. And then everybody's scrambling because now you have this diagnosis and you don't know what to do with it. In my world, it started with my mom, and she had dementia that was caused by a cancer surgery. So it was anesthesia dementia. And she got to the point where my dad couldn't take care of her anymore. And he just gave a call to my younger sister and said, "Hey, I can't do this anymore. I need help." And up to that point, we were so naive and young. I mean, we were under 40, that we didn't understand what it took to caregive for somebody like that, and my dad would always tell us he was fine. We learned later that
Mm.
fine was not, uh, actually fine. Fine was a call for help that was disguised as a different four-letter word. So, it was just, it was a very, very difficult journey for us because then we were suddenly scrambling because we had to find care for my mom. My dad literally couldn't take everywhere, even though we had hired help to come in and help. My mom didn't like the person, and we couldn't find
Mm.
somebody else to take over. And so, and then her health had declined so much that she needed 24-hour care. And obviously, my father could not do that. And we didn't live close enough at the time this was happening for this to be a possibility for us to be there. We ended up moving closer. So I was very, very close after that. But um, the other part to that is that we got her into a group home because that was the only option that was available to us because we could not get her in hospice. She wasn't bad enough to be on hospice yet. And so we got her into a group home, and within 30 days, they kicked her out because she developed three
Oh,
sores,
oh.
sores, and you could see her spine. And
Mm.
the visiting nurse, came and told us that she can't be here anymore, and then we were kicked out. We fortunately, the nurse actually knew another group home that was much better and was able to help us transition to because we only had 24 hours to get my mom out of this one place and to someplace else. And trying to organize that, and I'm sure that happens to a lot of families, but it's very traumatic because you're stuck in between a rock and a hard place, and they're pouring gravel on you. So, I mean, it's really, really difficult. So we just got lucky that the nurse happened to be there when it happened, and she
Mm.
said, "Oh, let me make a phone call," and made this happen for us. And the really cool part about it, the nurse actually got to go with her because that was one of the places that was in her, route.
Mm.
She was an RN, and the person that ran the group home was also an RN, and
Mm.
my mom's 3 bed sores, all 2 of them healed, and if she had lived 2 months longer, she would have been completely healed. So
Wow.
but it was such a huge shock to go through that and then trying to find out, A, how to pay for it, how to take care of all these things that we didn't know how to navigate. We didn't know how to use social services at the time. We didn't I mean, there was just so many things we didn't know, and it was traumatic. I mean, there was just
Mhm.
happening, and plus you're trying to keep a job and you're trying to now move, and all these things are, falling into place, and yeah, it was difficult.
Yeah, I can't even imagine all of that coming at you at one time. Not as just aside from the realization that, oh my gosh, my mom has developed three pressure sores or pressure ulcers while she's been in care here. So what else have they neglected? But then all of that happening in such a compressed time frame of 24 hours, and that sense of feeling you're kicking us out. I mean, how does that even happen in healthcare, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well,
Oh
and they have
my
the right to
goodness.
do that because they were understaffed. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and the regulations. You can't have pressure ulcers in certain areas in healthcare. So all these things that, yeah, a lot of the caregiver, the family unit as caregivers just don't know about because they've never been a part of that system. I remember the first time, so I started in the kind of the long-term care industry as a marketing person, right? Bringing the folks in, and I remember we lost someone at one time, and the administrator said, "Well, how soon can you fill the room?" And it was just like this moment of, what? Are we not even going to take a few minutes to grieve for the loss of this person? And it just immediately went right to the financial aspect of it. So it's such a financially driven organization or area of business, and we don't think of it as a business oftentimes. So, wow. So I'm so sorry that happened to your mom. But digging in a bit deeper, what about trauma related to just navigating the complexity of our current system? I mean, there's so many disparate bits and pieces to it. Go a little bit deeper in that area if you can, as your journey with three more times of going down this path progressed for you.
Oh, and each time was worse. There was there
Oh,
was no
jeez.
easy that's the reason I wrote the book. There was no easy way to go. Everything was not only hard, it was harder because it was always something new, something we didn't expect. And for example, my father was living alone after my mom died. Uh, we thought we didn't know he had Alzheimer's disease. So we just thought things were going well. And then he called me up one day and said, I can't pay for stuff. actually, that's not true. He came to my house and said he could not pay for anything anymore. He was in trouble. It just happened to be an event where my sisters were present. And so we all sat down and it's like, okay, we found out that he had maxed out $38,000 on his credit card, that he couldn't remember how to pay his bills, that there were a lot of things that were going on. So we stepped up to the plate and helped him. And actually within a year we had his finances back under control. But it was us dealing with it because he couldn't do it. But we didn't understand he had a disease at that point. We knew he had diabetes. We did not know he had Alzheimer's disease because we didn't know
Mm.
there was a correlation. We didn't know that there was a type 3 diabetes that was Alzheimer's disease. And so what happened is my younger sister and I lived closest, and so we were doing daily checks after work every day. One of us, we would alternate who was doing what check. And my younger sister found my dad in a coma in his apartment, face planted into his sofa.
Oh
She
my
called
gosh.
911. He came to a week later in the hospital and was diagnosed with moderate Alzheimer's disease. Now, we started this young, so we didn't understand all the legal ramifications. My younger sister and I decided to split care, and I took care of all my mom's stuff, and she was taking care of my dad. Um, at the time we tried to get him to release to our care, I was not signed on to get the HIPAA information for him. I did not have a lead power of attorney. They would not release him to my care. He got and he was ambulatory, so he wasn't bedridden, and he got released to another group home. Well, he then became an elopement risk because he
Oh,
didn't feel like there was anything wrong. And so he would ask them if he could go for a walk. They would say no because at this point he was in a facility that had two caregivers day and night. So there was, which is unusual. Usually it's just one day person in the day and one person at night. So, uh, there was only one other male there. Everyone else was bedridden, but my father. Okay,
oh,
so he would get up at when their backs were turned when they were busy, and he'd go for a walk because it was his old neighborhood he grew up in. So he knew the neighborhood like the back of his hand. And then they'd have to go chasing after him. And you know about the self-reporting. Um, if somebody escapes, they have to report it. So and we were getting upset because we did not understand what was going on or why this was happening because we didn't have enough knowledge and we blamed the staff instead of trying to help the staff. So we were giving them trauma too, and we were headbutting like mad. So they were trying to manage him via medications. They gave him
oh,
the Aricept patch, and he stopped eating because all food tasted like metal, and he dropped like 30 pounds in just a couple of months. And the only person that could get him to eat was my younger sister. So we figured out that the Aricept patch was causing a problem. They then gave him another medication called Seroquel. Well, nowadays, Seroquel, it's not for people with dementia. It causes diabetes. It causes hallucinations if you have dementia. There's a lot of things that happen with it. He was having hallucinations and threatened to kill his roommate because he thought his roommate was trying to kill him.
oh
So
gosh. Mm.
they sent him to a geriatric psych ward, but they wouldn't because he threatened to kill his roommate, but they wouldn't tell us where he was.
Oh my
So we had
gosh.
to call because of the friction. I mean, and I don't blame them for this. I understand now because I've had enough perspective to understand we were 50% of that problem. If we had understood what was going on, we could have made it such a better deal all the way around, but we didn't know. And so we played the blame game. So it took us 4 hours and we divided up the counties and we called every county around us and we found him in King County, which is one county to the north, after about 3 hours of calling. And so my husband and I drove up there to see him. He was taped to a bed as
Oh
well
my
as
gosh.
strapped, and he could barely move. He was weeping, which my dad would look like a Marine drill sergeant, just so you understand what he was. And although he's in the Air Force, but I mean, he looked like a Marine drill sergeant. The guy never cried. He never showed emotion like that. I mean, it was so shocking. It just made me fall to my knees. I had to not weep and cry in front of him, and this was so horrible. I tried to get social services to release him to our care, and they said, we can't do that. Because again, they thought we would put him back in his apartment. And it's like, no, we want to take him
Mm,
home with us. So we had a
mhm.
5-month battle
Oh
where he
my
kept getting
gosh.
ejected from. He would make 5 escapes from each one of the facilities. They would bring him to the next more secure. He had one more trip to another geriatric psych ward. This time we knew where he went. And then by the 5th and final one, this is what he did, because he was a very intelligent man, and even though he had moderate Alzheimer's disease, he still remembered the skills from his jobs. And he was
Absolutely.
very gifted with his hands. And so the first 3 escapes, and I applaud my dad for this, is so it's hindsight again. This is funny. It wasn't funny at the time. He was in a SNF that was a rehab facility, but also had, and so they had the dementia patients in, but everybody was locked down. But there was a code by the door. He didn't know that part. But what he did know is there was a lot of women that would come in to visit their husbands who come out of surgery or recovering from heart or stroke or something like that. And because of the location of where it was, because it was in kind of a sketch neighborhood, he would escort the ladies to their car so that they would be safe, and then he'd go for his walk. And they couldn't figure out how he was escaping until the
Oh, that's
3rd escape.
classic.
So, yeah, he was loving it because he was being very gallant, and he was walking
Yes.
people to their car, and he was
Yeah.
quite charming. So then
The
they put a
military
wristband
officer.
on. Yeah, they put a wristband on so that every time he went to the door now that it would set the alarm off. So he knew how to fix that. He noticed a problem in the window of his room, and that the screws were mounted incorrectly. So what he did is he waited. This is classic Daniel. You'll love this. He waited till his roommate went to physical therapy. Now he knew had an hour. He stayed in his pajamas and slippers. He only closed the door partially, and then he went and he unscrewed the plate glass window, lifted it out, climbed out, and then mounted it back in correctly so that the problem was fixed. So he fixed a problem they didn't even know they had, and he went for his walk.
Oh my
So
goodness.
when they get back an hour later, they realize he's been gone probably at least 45 minutes to an hour. Now, people don't understand how quickly someone with dementia can move. And my
They're
dad was in
fast.
really good shape. He made it 5 miles before 911 started getting calls about an elderly gentleman in pajamas and slippers crossing Pacific Highway South headed towards I-5 against the light.
Oh my goodness.
So
Oh,
all these calls are coming in, and here's where we caught our break. The sheriff who picked him up, because this is it's not inside any of the incorporated towns. The sheriff who picked him up had a family member that had dementia, and so he, instead of like yelling at my dad, he walks up, he goes, "You look really tired." And my dad said, "Yes, I am." And he goes, "Would
all
you
that
like a ride
walking.
home?" And my dad goes, "Oh, I would love a ride home." He goes, "Have you ever been in a police car before?" My dad said no, and so he got him in the police car in the front seat, and he told him all about the equipment inside it as he drove him back. So
Wow.
we're
What a
all
break.
I know, and we're all standing in the lobby by this time because 'cause it's been a couple hours now. The whole family's there, the all the social services, everybody's in the lobby waiting for him to come back, and they asked him how he did it, and so he was very happy to explain what he did and teach people because he loved teaching people. So he took him down to his room because the other window, because there were 2 plate glass windows there, was also incorrectly mounted, and he showed him how to fix it. So, what did they do? They go around and they found 30% of the windows had this problem. And of course, no facility has cameras facing towards patient windows because of privacy issues. So,
Mhm.
he's again solved a problem they didn't know they had, but that didn't change how they treated him. And so
Mm.
every time he would go towards a door or a window, they would scream at him.
Oh gosh. Mm.
So his final escape happened 2 days before Christmas, and what ended up happening is he was giving his favorite nurse a hug as she left her shift. Now it's a morning shift, so she was leaving, in the morning, and so he gave her a hug. He was right next to the, uh, door, so the alarm was going off. So the nurse just temporarily disabled it so that when he walked away, it would reactivate. And so he walked her to the door, stood by the door. He just happened to look down, and there was the code and the alarm key. So
Oh my,
he
oh.
waved goodbye to her, waited till she drove off, coded out, and went for his last walk.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
So
the ingenuity.
yeah, but it goes farther. They then called me and said, "We're done. We're not taking care of your dad anymore. You have 5 days to find some place for him to live."
Oh,
2 days
once
before
again.
Christmas.
Mm.
So, we fortunately, this is where we caught a break too because, the day before that, so that would have been the 23rd of December, uh, no, so 22nd of December, we ended up getting the power of attorney. So we had 5 days to get our home into a dementia-friendly
Oh
environment.
my goodness.
We
Wow.
failed miserably. I mean, I did everything wrong you could do wrong because I didn't know. So, yeah, that was so there was a little trauma involved there.
Oh my gosh, tons. I heard so many incidents from the yelling and the just that compressed time frame of you only have this much time to make again a life altering decision in the
Mhm.
midst of all the holidays and the hubbub of everything that goes on with the holidays. But how fortunate to have found a sheriff who understood, because I have, in my experience anyways, a lot of times law enforcement and even first responders don't understand the dementia disease process or what happens with traumatic brain injury, right? And so to find a sheriff who knew what to do and how to navigate through that, what a blessing. But it really does speak to the lack of education that I think we have as a society, even within the caregivers in the community. The fact that every time your dad went towards a door or a window, their first response was to yell rather than to come to a physical interaction of, hey, let's go find some more windows, right, that need to be replaced. I'm sure that your dad would have been all over that.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. There's such a need out there for education. But wow, what your dad must have been quite a character.
He was. He was.
it, it really is. It really is a testament to how the brain works and that those memories that we hold on to and how we kind of draw on those just for that kind of survival mechanism, right? Of
Mhm.
I've got to find a way out of here. Yeah. Wow. What a story, Tracy. That's yeah, I'm sure it's nice at this point now to be able to kind of laugh about it and find your father, snippets of your father and who he was, right? Um, from years ago rather than what the disease process was doing to him. So I love those stories and I hope that they bring some comfort to your family as well.
Oh, we definitely laugh about them now. At the time, it was rather painful, but yeah, we laugh about them.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. I think one thing that I've been giving a lot of thought about is how oftentimes through the disease process, or if it's a traumatic brain injury, we sometimes become our shadow side of who we are. And so the once very friendly individual is now a little mean and cantankerous, and not who we came to love and know. And oftentimes I find that people point the finger at them and say, oh, they're so horrible. How could they do this? These are people that they love. And it's, yes, they're inflicting pain unknowingly on their loved ones, but then they sometimes are getting the blame for being a bad person. And I'm really troubled by that because my thinking is they still deserve compassion. They have a brain injury or they have a disease. Do you have any thoughts on that? How do you kind of navigate that tension between those two things?
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts on that, but I'll try and paraphrase it down. But first of all, the thing is, most people when they're caring for someone with dementia have no idea what's happening in the brain. So I like to show people. There's an image from the NIH that compares a healthy aged brain to they had used to have a moderate Alzheimer's disease brain up, but now it's severe. But it shows the holes developing, it shows the brain
Yeah.
shrinking, and then I like to explain to people that when we are in kindergarten, we learn to tie our shoelace. And the way our brain is designed is that to help us learn faster, what happens is that we take the information where we learn to tie the shoelace, and by the time we're in second grade, we can tie more complex knots. So our brain is designed to do that for us. But when they're developing holes in their brain, the material that was in the space that where the holes are now is gone. It's just not coming
Yeah.
back. And
Yeah.
so, but our brain is still going to search for whatever was in that space. They're going to look near, it's going to look near it. So it's going to come back with the wrong things. And so, yes, your loved one might be paranoid. Yes, we might have done something trying to reality orient them, trying to make them say, no, no, it's you need to be in my space. I can't be in yours, when the reverse is true. We actually need to understand through compassion that they cannot help where they are right now and that we need to reach where they are, which is why I like to give people practical tools. I don't know if you've said in any of my talks, but the memory book is probably the most important tool in the toolbox because it tells their story. So they can find themselves in there, and then you know how to relate to them based on where they are in their timeline. Because if you don't know where they are and they're just coming up with some random thing about they need to go home, they need to go home, it's starting to get
Where
dark
is home?
outside and they're sundowning and you're going to go, where's home? You can have them pick themselves out because then you've also got a distraction technique because you put something
Yes.
in their hand, it's tactile. You have them tell a story, you're redirecting them, and then you find out where they are, and then you can speak to their truth and get them calmed back down. So there's a lot of things you can do. Um, Understanding also that if they are upset, be on their dominant side. So if they're right-handed, stand on their right-hand side because if you're on their left side, you're going to see they keep trying to move away from you. You're making them uncomfortable. If you're on their dominant side, they don't have that issue as much. And so they're feeling more in control. So it's important to know that
Oh,
too, that you need to be on their dominant side. And also, if they're really raging, stand facing the same direction they are. Yell what they're yelling. You suddenly become their champion. It shifts the perspective.
oh,
If
that's
you do
fascinating.
that, you can get them, you can be on their side, you become their champion, and they stop yelling. It's amazing. It works with 2-year-olds. So you can do this with anybody. It doesn't matter how old they are. If you want to calm them back down, champion their side, show that you understand and that you can walk with them. And then once they're over the crisis, because now they're going to have other physical things that happen to them, especially in elderly, they're going to get cold suddenly. They're going to become hypothermic. And that's another thing that most of us don't recognize. It happened in my family, which is how I became aware of this. I didn't know to wrap my dad in a weighted blanket. I didn't know
Mm,
that if I gave him something warm to drink, maybe a little sugary, it would keep his blood sugar up. I mean, those were the things I didn't know. How to walk people back to a place of safety, make sure I took care of his physical needs. Did he need to go to the bathroom? Because a lot of times after that, yes, suddenly his body just needed to go to the bathroom. So, I mean, there's a
mhm.
lot of things to take care of after that when you're bringing somebody back down from a trauma. And then you get to take care of your own needs because you, as the healthy adult, have the ability to delay that and then take care of your own trauma later. So, but then you need
Mm.
to take care of it too, and you need to have that time where you can go cry in the corner or just have a time to breathe or go for a quick walk or whatever it is you need to do. But it's knowing how to get them back to that place of safety. Once you've earned their trust, once you understand how that works, it reduces the trauma.
Wow, that is amazing practical advice. I learned so much from you just listening to this, and I spent a lot of time in this field, but that was really, really practical. So hopefully, folks were able to kind of capture some of that. I guess the beauty of video, they can always come back and re-listen, or they can get your book as well on how to apply some of these practical things. And I think that's the one thing we oftentimes miss when caring for folks with dementia is that every situation is going to be a little bit different,
Mhm.
again kind of depending on their timeline, and so we have to kind of practice or have our own toolkit of ways to deal with it and constantly be looking for something that is a new approach that we might take for those interventions. So wow, fascinating to be on their side. Never even would have occurred to me, so love it. Oh gosh, well, in our remaining few minutes, what else can you share related to? Let's back up for a minute because we did talk about, yes, we have to care for them. We have to meet them where they're at. They're the ones that are truly in the state of dis-ease and distress, but that does put the caregiver in a state of dis-ease and distress as well. So it is important for us to care for ourselves. Where was I going with that? Because this is the Compassion Project, and we do want to leave people with one or two things that they can do to care for themselves, because we can't demonstrate compassion until we have given ourselves self-compassion. And I think self-compassion is slightly different than self-care, right? Self-care is I'm staying hydrated, I'm bathing as often as I should, I'm able to take care of my activities of daily living. Self-compassion is, am I breathing correctly? Am I allowing myself some meditation time, etc.? So what are a couple things that you would share for folks as caregivers who are caring for others to do that is self-compassion?
Well, I would say have 2 or 3 friends that you can call on the phone that understand what's going on or may have gone through it before, because being able to vent to somebody that you know and love and care about is much more compelling. It's easier. Sometimes it's easier to talk to a stranger, but there are times when you can relate to somebody and then you can go through and process that yourself. Another thing is, as Danielle, you mentioned, is breathing, because breathing is huge, especially after an event, is give yourself time to lower your blood pressure. It's also okay to go in the other room and throw pillows, scream into a pillow, go in the, and here's one that I used to do. I used to do a laughter yoga move to get myself laughing because it would lower my blood pressure. It would make me happy inside, so to speak, and get me to calm down and get me back to a place where I could actually be friendly and have all those endorphins running through, because my brain doesn't know the difference between me fake laughing and real laughing. And so at some point it switches over. So I even talk about this in my book about the big tee-hee, where you get yourself to laugh, and that you get yourself to that place where you give yourself permission to do it. Because the other part of this is we are sometimes our worst enemies, and we put up the blinders and are blocking ourselves from actually enjoying the fullness of and richness of life. There are so many things, once we give ourselves permission to do them, that we can actually find enjoyment even in the difficult moments. So there's always going to be some collateral beauty somewhere. It's just giving yourself permission to enjoy it and look for it.
I couldn't agree more with you around the permission to care for yourself, and laughter is a big part of that. And I think we find ourselves in these situations of, this is a really serious problem. And I think there's oftentimes guilt associated with giving yourself permission to laugh through it. And I can tell you, working in healthcare and walking into meetings, and everyone just sat in this very stoic, this is very serious work, we have to be very serious, and no one in an entire meeting laughs or even cracks a smile as they sit there in their suits. My friend Kevin calls them their suits of armor in healthcare. But so having that brevity, something to lighten the mood and bring some laughter, I think, yeah, it's so missing and so needed. So I appreciate that you provided that great reminder of just laughing. And yeah, it's serious. And sometimes the only way to get through something serious is to walk in a little bit of light, and bring some freshness and happiness along with it. One thing most folks don't know who act as caregivers, particularly a partner, an aged partner, is that oftentimes the caregiver or the person with the dementia or the disease will outlive the caregiver, because it can be so stressful for the caregiver. And so having those coping tools and the techniques of the things that Tracy talked about and provided, I think can do our caregivers along a great opportunity. And I think our caregivers in our dementia communities need to have a lot more education. And I think that education needs to extend out even further into the community at large. So Tracy, tell folks how they can find more about you, where they can find you, how they can find your book.
Well, thank you very much, Danielle. My website is tracycramperkins.com. And you can also find me on social. I spend most of my time on Facebook, but I'm also on Instagram and occasionally on Twitter. But I would say if you really need to find me, you would find me that way. You can also reach me by email at tracycramperkins.com. And my book is in wide release, so you can find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, and your favorite independent booksellers.
I didn't realize it was available at so many places. That's really great news, because it's really a much needed resource for certain. What other areas are you involved in terms of bringing light and wisdom and guidance into the community around dementia care?
Well, I tend to teach a course through either the libraries or sometimes through senior centers called 5 Little Known Secrets to Making Dementia Caregiving Easier. And I teach people how to effectively use color, because a color is a powerful tool when you are
It
dealing with
is.
dementia, especially if you want to keep people self-feeding, if you want people to toilet properly. Something as simple as putting a red toilet seat on the toilet itself. I show a picture when I do it of a bathroom that's all white except for a green potted plant, because I lost my ficus tree to being thought of as the urinal. And so now, after I learned, a little color would make a big difference, and not having a plant anywhere in the line of sight of the bathroom, it was a great learning tool,
Yeah, I can
and I no longer
imagine.
keep plants. Oh, yes. I also discovered that every freeway exit was an opportunity as well. So, yeah, I learned a lot, because you just never know what's going to happen along the journey, or when someone needs to use the restroom. Take them seriously right then and there. I have also learned a lot about people who are bedridden. There's actually BD offers Pure Wick, which if you have a bedridden, it's like what you see in the hospitals, where they have the home model that you can use so that you are not changing them, and it reduces pressure sores. It also,
Mhm.
reduces urinary tract infections. There's also wonderful companies out there like Seni USA and Abena that offer breathable continence products, so that again, for women especially, we have a shorter urethra than men, so we are more susceptible to urinary tract infections, which makes dementia worse, or gives dementia-like
Yeah.
symptoms because of the
Yes.
fever. So, I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it's just learning these little tips about things you can use. So go to my resources page. I have over 150 resources on my website. So if you can go to tracykramperkins.com/resources, you will find everything from translation languages, adaptive clothing, wandering, and services that you probably might not even thought of. So I've tried to make this so that you do not have to search and go through the things that I went through.
Yeah, it really is a fantastic book. I have given it out several times to folks myself, and there is just a ton of resources in the book. And yes, for women, for older women that are in your life, make sure that they are getting enough water, because those UTIs can absolutely mimic dementia, or they can actually make the dementia seem a lot worse. And sometimes you have to fight. This is where that trauma of navigating healthcare is really important. Sometimes you have to fight to get that UA, because a lot of times the physician's offices will laugh at you and say, oh, UTI isn't going to do anything, but it actually is known to make the situation far worse. So again, wow, Tracy, what a fascinating conversation. I learned so much from you today in terms of caring for folks, not only the folks with dementia and disease processes, but also ourselves. So thank you so much for being part of the Compassion Project today. And just a quick note that you can find the Compassion Project on one of the 2 YouTube channels. Just hit the playlist under Compassion Project, and I will be back next month for a really fascinating conversation around moral injury and what is happening in healthcare to a lot of our providers. So until then, thank you again, Tracy. I look forward to seeing everyone next time. And now, if you'll stay with us for just a few minutes longer, we'll hear a quick word from our sponsors. Thank you.